Now, yesterday I did a Let's Talk Some Star Wars video that discussed how fans are kind of feeling about Andor, whether or not it feels like Star Wars to them. And by and large, most people, well, half the people said it feels just like Star Wars, that it is Star Wars. And for the most part, everybody else said, to some degree, this does feel like Star Wars. There was a small percent that said it didn't feel like Star Wars at all. However, those numbers are pretty much coming from more hardcore Star Wars fans, I would say, not the kind of more average or casual viewer. And so there's an interesting report, I guess you could say, and I'm going to bring my wife, Sailor Naboo, in. We were going to talk about this over on our other channel, but I figured this kind of related so much to yesterday's video. I just wanted to bring it up over here as a kind of follow-up to that. And we're going to talk about a Parrot Analytical, I believe is the company, that kind of talks or measures the kind of social media response to these shows and these series and how well they're doing.
All right, so this is new data coming from Brandon Katz, who is an industry strategist for Parrot Analytics. And it shows that Andor has the lowest audience demand of all Star Wars shows on Disney+. Kind of using a proprietary system to calculate audience demand. It takes into account social media posts, blogs, search traffic, and more. And Andor is ranking, it almost looks like it's flatlined below.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's done anything, yeah.
Mandalorian Season 1 has the highest peak overall. What this tells us is there's less online talk on Andor when compared to the average Star Wars streaming TV show today. It is important to emphasize this is not a viewership graphic. It is an online demand one. Parrot Analytics aggregate measures of the number of downloads, news coverage, social media, and even piracy on specific series. So they'll also be the ones who come back with more information as Andor continues.
So yeah, I think there's a couple different reasons why this could be the case. Mm-hmm. I think maybe the biggest reason is this is not resonating with the more casual fan who thinks lightsabers and space battles and, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Boba Fett when they think Star Wars. I don't think it has that kind of appeal to the more casual fan, at least without watching it. I think most people who watch it, I want to believe most people who watch it are going to watch it and enjoy it.
Do you also think it could be because we know where anyone who's watched Rogue One knows where Cassian's story ends, and he wasn't a hugely memorable character?
I think that's part of it. I think that might initially keep people away because that was one of my kind of gripes going into it, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm someone who's loving Andor. I'm absolutely loving the show. And going into it, I'm like, well, we know exactly how this story has to end, so the journey itself has to be entertaining, and the journey itself has been very entertaining thus far. I know the big complaint, it's too slow, it's kind of very deliberate, it's extremely character focused. I get all that, but it's been so well done, in my opinion, that I think a lot of people may have, if you heard, new Star Wars series, Andor, weird name, but I'll check it out. You might watch the first episode or two and go, this isn't really Star Wars to me, and you might turn it off and never come back to see episode 3 or episode 6, which are much more, explosive, shall we say.
Right, I mean, I do know that that's probably why they released the first 3 at once, is because they knew those first 2 are so slow, it would be hard to gain traction if they released them 1 week.
Yeah, I think that was the smartest thing they could have done. If they would have just released episode 1, even I would have been like, what is this? Like, what are we doing? This is too slow. Not that it's not good still, but I certainly would have think there would be more justification to calling this just kind of a slow, boring kind of thing, because you have to do something. You have to cook the audience, right? You can't just say, well, it's coming, we promise, just watch a few more episodes. So right. I think that's part of it.
I mean, there's definitely complex character dynamics, wonderful, like Tony Gilroy's got a very deliberate storytelling method that really drives the show, and you can feel it. When things happen, they hit you emotionally because you may only know a little bit about a character, but the amount they told you through their dialogue and then through visually and how they interact with each other really gets you to understand people. It's very
it's a much more grounded approach. It's a more, these are the people who make up, as I was saying yesterday, it's kind of a nuts and bolts approach to Star Wars. These are the, it's the foundation. These are the average everyday people, and some of them have to rise up and do incredible things, which is not a new thing to Star Wars. Don't get me wrong. Luke Skywalker's story is about a average kid who found himself in a much bigger conflict and becomes, the hero of the galaxy, essentially. So it's not new, but it kind of goes back to that grassroots approach to Star Wars, I think, where these are average people doing incredible things against an impossible opponent.
Brandon Katz, the one who shared the initial report, also went on to say, yes, House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, and She-Hulk are sucking up a lot of the genre attention right now. They're big names, but Andor is exactly the sort of high-quality, 4-quadrant title Disney Plus needs to expand its demo.
No, I agree. I think Disney Plus does appeal to a much younger audience in general. I mean, it's Disney, right? I think most people, Disney and youth is kind of synonymous. Not that it doesn't have adult fans, certainly, but I think they did need something a little more, shall we call it HBO-like? Something a little more that really caters to almost strictly an adult audience.
HBO without being HBO, you know?
Yeah, you don't need to go HBO's, sex and kind of gratuitous violence at times. I'm not saying that, but that kind of intellectual, I guess, slower burn, kind of more intellectual approach rather than, again, lightsabers.
As
just
Tony
swinging
Gilroy
around.
said over and over, this is a thriller. It is designed to be slow-paced with all this build-up, anxieties, pressures, to kind of really drive in that feeling into the audience before things happen.
Yeah, you get to know the characters so you understand the stakes personally and on the larger scale, too. But no, I do think Rings of Power... I mean, these are blockbuster names. Not that Star Wars itself isn't blockbuster, but Andor itself isn't blockbuster, right? If this was Kenobi or Boba Fett going against them, I think things might be a little different. But Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, even Marvel's She-Hulk... Those are huge names, so it has faced stiff competition here.
Well, and they also run into that Disney, for some reason, has trouble naming things, in my opinion.
No, I do think calling it just Andor was probably a mistake, especially because it is an ensemble, too. It's not just about Andor. We have Mon Mothma, we have other new characters, so definitely a mistake. And kind of along those lines, it doesn't have that wow factor that has people like immediately taking to social media to talk about it. Like, after Mandalorian Episode 1, Season 1, Baby Yoda. I mean, holy cow. So of course people were talking about that. What did Andor have? And that's not a knock on Andor saying it doesn't have that immediate like, oh my god, I have to go post this on social media because that's what people do these days.
They did a correct naming as well for the Mandalorian. I think if they would have just called that Din Djarin, people
True.
would be like,
Well,
who's that? I don't know, but they call it
guess.
the Mandalorian. Mandalorian is so deep rooted in Star Wars culture. They think of Boba Fett, Jango Fett.
Well, the fact that he looks like him, I don't know that, to be completely honest and fair, I don't know that Mandalorian, until the show now, was really well known outside of the kind of more core fandom.
That could be true, yeah. But he does look like Boba Fett, and trailer every time he came off as a total...
Yeah, he looks just, I mean, the armor is so similar to Boba Fett. I think people put, one and one together and got two. But no, I think that's been another problem. I think one of the reasons it is not kind of trending on social media is it's not like, oh, look at all these cool Easter eggs and, fan service that we had in this episode. Oh my God, this character showed up. It hasn't done anything like that for the most part. It has its little fan service moments, yes, but it doesn't have that like wow factor. It doesn't have Luke Skywalker showing up. It doesn't have, Mandalorian showing up in the middle of Book of Boba Fett and kind of stealing the show, and then Luke and Ahsoka. It doesn't have these like huge like quote unquote Star Wars fan service moments. And so of course it's not going to be as, talked about on social media. But yeah, I mean, I hope this is not indicative of how it is resonating with non-Star Wars fans. I hope this is just, again, these kind of things we talked about are part of the reason. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think it is resonating quite like it does, like some of the other shows have.
Well, he's not really a legacy character.
True, but I mean, just in general, I think even with a lot of Star Wars fans, I think it's, kind of the more casual fan in general, not just even the average moviegoer or, series watcher, whatever you want to call them. I don't think it is quite there. Not because it isn't good, because I think they're not giving it the chance, again, for all these reasons we've talked about. All right, well, that's all we got for you this time. So if you enjoy conversations like these, do check out my second channel. We do this pretty much daily. Well, actually, we do it daily. So if you enjoy a good conversation like this, go check that out. Either way, leave your comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. Let's talk about Andor. And until next time, thanks for watching.